My girlfriend electrocuted me to protect her lover, but after she lost everything and was betrayed by him, she came back begging for a chance, saying I was always her true love. First of all, like this video and help our work. Let's get back to the story. My girlfriend, whom I had lived with for over 2 years and whom I intended to propose to the week following everything I'm about to tell you, ended up attacking me to protect her lover. I never imagined that the person I shared a home, plans, and a future with was capable of something like that. And the worst part is that it all happened because of an absurd mix of coincidence, fate, and a sequence of wrong decisions. Emilia, that's my ex's name, always carried a taser in her purse. She said it was for safety, and I understood perfectly. We live in a city where violence is only growing. Unfortunately, women are often easy targets in dangerous situations. I never questioned this habit. On the contrary, I always thought it was a responsible attitude. What I never imagined is that the device that supposedly existed to protect her would end up being used against me. I never imagined she would give me an electric shock to save another man. It all started on an absolutely ordinary day, on a weekday night. I had just left the supermarket with several bags and was walking toward the parking lot where I had left my car. I remember being distracted, thinking about the marriage proposal I was preparing. I already had everything planned, even the ring was already set aside. As I walked, I began to hear screams in the distance. They weren't screams of panic, but the typical tone of an intense argument. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but as I got closer, I could see the scene better. I saw a couple. From a distance, it seemed like just an argument, but something in the man's body language put me on alert. He was leaning forward, fists clenched, jaw locked. The woman was backing up half a step, as if trying to calm him down. That was enough for me. I wasn't going to allow a man to intimidate a woman that way, especially in a dark, practically empty parking lot. I know many people will say I shouldn't have gotten involved, that we don't know other people's stories, that we never know what's really happening. But even after everything that happened to me, I still think the same way. I am not in favor of violence against women. You love, protect, and respect a woman. It's curious how this thought remains intact despite what I lived through. Maybe I need to say this clearly. You can't put all women in the same bag. My experience cannot turn me into someone who generalizes or holds on to hate, but I'm getting ahead of myself. When I got close enough to see the woman's face, I felt as if the ground had vanished beneath my feet. It was Emilia, my girlfriend, the woman I lived with, the woman I intended to propose to in less than a week. My reaction was automatic. I dropped the bags on the ground and rushed forward. The man was bigger than me, and that's no small thing, since I am 1.80 meters tall, 5'11". He must have been over 1.90 meters, 6'3", very bulky, the type who works carrying heavy loads or in security. In comparison, Emilia looked small. She is 1.60 meters, 5'3", and thin. Seeing the two of them in that position is hard to explain. It was like watching a fire in slow motion. I stepped in front of him and asked, "What's going on here?" Without showing any surprise, he replied, "Don't get involved. It's an argument with my wife." My wife? That's what he said. I was completely confused. Emilia recognized me instantly. Her eyes widened and she raised her hands nervously. "Calm down, both of you," she shouted, looking first at him and then at me. "But she's my girlfriend," slipped out of me more as a reflex than an accusation, and that was exactly the moment everything exploded. The guy looked me up and down as if evaluating whether it was worth beating me up. My sentence clearly irritated him. His expression changed instantly. From annoyance, it turned to pure fury, as if I had invaded forbidden territory. He charged at me without warning. I felt the first punch to my jaw. Dry, strong, direct. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. He mounted on top of me and began striking my chest, face, and arms while I tried to protect myself. Amelia screamed for us to stop, but it seemed like he didn't hear or simply didn't want to hear. In the middle of the struggle, I managed to move, use my legs, and turn the tables. I pinned him underneath and started hitting back. I won't lie, I felt adrenaline, anger, shock, all at the same time. And a question was hammering in my head. Why was Amelia there with him? Why did that man call her his wife? What was really happening? But exactly when I was about to immobilize him, I felt something I had never felt in my life. A direct electric discharge to my neck. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no exaggerated scene. It was an instant paralyzing numbness. An internal tremor ran through all my muscles at once. My arms lost their strength. My vision went dark. It was Amelia. She used the taser on me. I was on top of the guy defending myself, and she decided to attack me. In a second, everything seemed to compress. My body stopped responding. I fell to the side, half conscious, hearing my own shaky breathing because of the spasms. Her lover took advantage of that moment to push me hard and get on top of me again. This time the blows were even stronger. He kicked me in the ribs directly, 1, 2, 3 times. I couldn't defend myself. My body was stiff, useless. Amelia screamed, "That's enough! Stop! Someone is going to show up! Let's go!" And the two of them left. They left me lying there, me, her partner, the person she lived with, the person she planned a future with and who intended to propose to her. They left me like trash on the parking lot floor. I don't know how long I remained unconscious. When I opened my eyes, I saw white lights and heard distant voices. I was inside an ambulance. I was taken to the hospital. The diagnosis was heavy. Multiple contusions, 1 broken rib, 2 others cracked, internal bruising, and chemical evidence of electrocution. The police arrived at the hospital that same night. They took my statement. I told them everything I could between the physical pain and the indignation. The report was clear: aggravated assault and misuse of an electric weapon. I filed charges without hesitation. The parking lot cameras and the witnesses confirmed everything. The next day, the guy was arrested. His name was Marco. He worked as a security guard at a nearby nightclub and already had a record for fights and disturbances. Unfortunately, Amelia wasn't arrested at that moment, but she was summoned, received a legal warning, and was officially recorded for using an electric weapon against a third party. It was her first criminal record, but her history was already stained. And the most curious, the most disgusting, the saddest part is that Amelia didn't reach out to me to see how I was. Of course, after everything that happened, I didn't want to see her anymore, but deep down, I still expected some sign of remorse, some concern, anything. But she only reached out to me to ask me to drop the charges. She said I had gotten involved in an argument that wasn't mine. She said she had fallen in love with Marco, that things shouldn't have turned out that way, that he was scared, that his life would be ruined if the lawsuit continued, that I needed to understand her, that it had all just been a heat-of-the-moment reaction. A lot of empty talk, a lot of blah, blah, blah. She never took responsibility for anything. Her only interest was for me to help clean up the disaster she created herself. It was then that I understood, once and for all, who she really was. I didn't need any more explanations or excuses. I closed the door, continued with the legal process, and vanished from her life. Now I am recovering and reorganizing everything ahead of me. Amelia hasn't reached out to me again, and to be honest, I prefer it stays that way. When there's news about Marco's sentence, I'll come back to update you. Update 1. First of all, thank you all for the advice I received after publishing what happened to me. There was a lot of discussion about my decision to intervene when I see someone in danger, especially when it involves a woman. I understand that. Each person interprets this type of situation differently, but even after everything I lived through, my position hasn't changed. If I see someone being intimidated again, I will help in any way I can. Everyone chooses how to act, and I am not going to become someone who turns their face away for fear of making a mistake. I don't intend to change that part of me. That said, now I want to go into details that many people asked for, because in the first post I couldn't expand as much. The truth is that everything that happened after the hospital was as strange and confusing as the assault itself. When I left the hospital, the first thing I did was go to the apartment where Amelia and I lived. I didn't know what I would find, or if she would be there. It was strange to open the door and see everything exactly as it had always been, as if nothing had happened. The lights off, things in their places, her purse on the coat rack, her jacket thrown over the chair, everything the same. I started packing my things. I put everything in suitcases without stopping to reminisce about anything. It simply made no sense to stay there even one more day. Then I called the owner of the apartment and told her we were vacating the property. She already knew something had happened because the police had been there, but she didn't ask questions. She just said she would do an inspection once the apartment was handed over and cleaned. Next, I sent a single message to Amelia, a direct message, no insults. Come get your things from the apartment. The owner is going to do the inspection, so leave everything clean. I didn't expect a reply, but she responded. Her message was, "Where do you expect me to sleep now? You shouldn't have given back the apartment." It was at that moment that I was certain I had made the right decision. I simply replied, "That is no longer my problem." After all, she hadn't even returned to the apartment after everything that happened. I don't know if she picked up her things, and honestly, I don't care. It was no longer my business. Regarding Marco, the man who attacked me, the legal process moved quickly because there was solid evidence and witnesses. After the hearing, he was sentenced to several months in prison for aggravated assault and bodily injury. I won't go into legal details, but the important thing is, he didn't walk free. As I write this, he remains in prison. This news, instead of driving Amelia away, made her reach out to me again. She wrote to me saying there was still time, that I could fix everything, that I should take a step back and allow her and Marco to be happy. Yes, exactly that. She asked me to withdraw the complaint, to set free the man who almost stopped me from breathing in that parking lot, the man for whom she electrocuted me. But if there was one thing very clear to me, it was that Amelia needed to face the consequences of what she did. And it also became clear that her family and friends needed to know who she really was. For years, Amelia built an image of a calm, responsible, polite woman. I was part of that scenery. With the security camera footage, where everything appeared clearly, I put together a simple, direct video. I didn't need to exaggerate or dramatize anything. I just said, I broke up with Amelia. She had a lover. She attacked me to protect him. This video shows what happened. I sent this to her closest family and some important acquaintances. It wasn't a theatrical revenge nor an attempt to humiliate her publicly. It was just exposing the truth. The responses started arriving shortly after, messages of support, of shock, of solidarity. Her family said they regretted everything, that they couldn't believe it, and that they hoped I would recover soon. Some friends also reached out to me, asking if I needed anything. No one defended Amelia. No one said it must have been a misunderstanding. No one tried to justify her. In that sense, I feel relieved that people were able to see past the tranquility, in quotes, that she always projected. This was, in a way, more revealing than everything else, because for years she had said I was a good man, and now that image was in direct conflict with her actions. I don't know how she reacted when she saw what I sent. I don't know if anyone confronted her or if she received messages questioning her actions. But something happened. because she wrote to me again, and this time with a completely different tone. She said this was a problem between the two of us, that I shouldn't have sent misleading information to her family, and that I was making things worse. I had to read that phrase twice, misleading information, as if I were the one in the wrong. What nerve! I didn't even respond. It made no sense to give that any more space. The most curious thing happened a few weeks later. Having no contact with me, Emilia started posting things on social media, not about me directly, but about Marco. Public messages, long texts saying she would wait for him, that when he got out of prison they would finally be happy, that not everyone is lucky enough to find a true love that transforms their life. And yes, I saw it, not because I followed her, but because mutual friends sent it to me. Emilia decided to sustain this fantasy of forbidden love, as if suffering for him were a virtue, as if everything she did were justifiable because of this story she created in her own head. I'm not a psychologist, and I don't pretend to be, but I sincerely think something happened to her. I don't know if it was emotional, mental, or a strange mix of both, but the woman I knew was not the same one who was now posting sappy phrases while her lover was in prison for beating me up. And I say this without bitterness. I say it because truly I don't recognize this person anymore. Update 2. Well, indeed. I didn't think I would be writing here again, but life changes. Out of nowhere, a year and a half has passed since the last update, and honestly, I believed this phase of my life was buried, but fate has some strange, uncomfortable, and sometimes frankly ridiculous twists. What just happened deserves an update. A few months ago, Marco, yes, the same Marco, got out of prison. He served his time and returned to the streets as if nothing had happened. And Emilia, instead of disappearing from his life for good, decided to move in with him. I don't know at what point Pat seemed like a good idea. Maybe she always believed that man was the love of her life. The same narrative she repeated when she begged me to withdraw the charges. I saw the posts they made together, photos of them hugging, images edited with hearts, sappy phrases, the kind of extremely cheesy stuff that makes you close the app immediately. If it weren't for everything I lived through, I would have thought it was a bad romantic comedy, but it wasn't. It was her new life, the life she chose instead of me. Only unfortunately, or perhaps logically, something that starts wrong usually ends even worse. A short while ago, Emilia came looking for me. It wasn't by chance. She went straight to my door and knocked as if she still had that right. When I opened it, she looked different. And I'm not just talking about her appearance. I'm talking about her gaze. She was direct. She said she had been mistaken, that she never should have kept seeing Marco, that the relationship was nothing but toxicity and pain, and that her heart couldn't take it anymore. I listened to her because, honestly, I needed to understand why she was there. But when she finished, I said the only thing that made sense. I have nothing to do with you. I don't know why you came here. That was when she started pouring everything out, as if she had been holding in months of confessions. She said that with me, everything had been stable, that she'd never lacked anything, that she'd never lost her peace. And then, almost without realizing it, she started telling me how in love she had been with Marco, and how happy they had been in the first few months after he got out of prison. All of this while asking for my forgiveness. But then came the really interesting part, the real reason why she was there. Marco had gotten involved with a married woman. Emilia found out because Marco himself threw it in her face during fights. He said the mistress was prettier than her and that he didn't have to put up with her drama. To make matters worse, the woman's husband ordered a hit on Marco. Literally, he was ambushed and beaten to the point of ending up in the hospital. Emilia said that was what finally opened her eyes, that she didn't intend to pay his medical bills, that she wanted to cut ties, and that she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. And in the midst of all this chaos, what impressed me most was seeing her try to justify her own story from the beginning. That was when she told me how she actually met Marco, something I never knew, and that, had I known at the time, would have changed everything. Months before she electrocuted me, my friends and I went to a nightclub, the same nightclub where Marco worked as a security guard. While I was distracted, he approached Emilia and gave her his number. She said she replied out of politeness for an innocent flirtation, in her words, but that she never imagined she would fall so deeply in love. Hearing this was like watching the beginning of an accident in slow motion. She went back to asking for my forgiveness, back to saying she was confused. She went back to claiming that I was always the right person, but the most absurd part was yet to come. In the middle of all those apologies, the true reason she had sought me out slipped out. She couldn't find a job anymore. She used to work in offices with formal contracts. Now, because of her legal record, many companies discarded her resume without even calling. She said large companies check criminal records, and that detail was closing doors everywhere. After telling me this, she asked me for money. Yes, money. She said it was just a little, that she would pay me back quickly, and that it was just to support herself while she found a less demanding job. There was a second, just one, where I felt pity. Seeing the woman I once loved asking for money from the person she electrocuted was sad, I won't lie. But that second passed as quickly as it came, because I realized I already knew everything I needed to know and that I wasn't interested in knowing anything else. So I answered what I should have said from the beginning. Not now, not ever are we going to have another chance, and I am not going to help you with anything. She started to cry. She said her parents had limited the money they were sending, that they were pressuring her to take responsibility for her own life, that she didn't know how she would pay the rent, that with a record it was hard to even get an interview, but none of that was my problem. I repeated without raising my voice, "What happens to you now is none of my business." She kept begging. She asked me to remember what we had, to understand that she was in a complicated situation, that she just needed a push. I simply closed the door. Since that day, I haven't had any more news of her. As for Marco, honestly, I don't know how serious his health condition is. From what Emilia told me, it sounds like it was serious. Broken bones, severe contusions, something like that. She didn't go into detail, and I didn't ask. All I know is that right now he is in the hospital recovering from the beating he took for getting involved with a married woman. I know it's cruel, but a part of me feels curious. Sometimes I think about showing up at that hospital, seeing him lying in bed, looking at his face and smiling. Just that. It's a tempting idea. I don't know if I'll do it. I'm still thinking about it. Reddit of the Day comment. Honestly, this story is the kind of thing that proves that karma doesn't arrive fast, but when it does, it comes without a GPS and runs over everyone in its path. The girl had stability, respect, and someone willing to defend her even with his own body. She chose chaos. She chose drama. She chose the guy who cheated, got beaten up, ruined her own reputation, and she still had the nerve to come back asking for money from the person she electrocuted. And the most curious part? She never truly asked for forgiveness. She asked for help once the consequences came knocking at the door.